Well, it's Tuesday morning. It's pretty early, I should think, around about 6:30 in the morning. And I am in the tent. You can hear the rain on the roof. Not as bad as it was yesterday, which is good. Yesterday I was in Glenfeshie again. It's a very wet day. And I was still camped down by the river on that sandbank, a good 3 feet above the level of the water. But I've lived next to the Tweed for 20 years, and what I've noticed in that time is that when there's heavy rain, sooner or later the level of the water goes up quite rapidly and quite substantially as well. So I should have taken that knowledge with me, really, and applied it in a different setting, because I went out yesterday to do some more exploring at the Four Lochans with this audio recorder and the camera. Although most of the sounds were wet ones, a lot of raindrops, the occasional bit of birdsong. This must be Monday noon, round about noon I should think, and I spent the night on a little sandbank just off a dry riverbed that no doubt in times of torrential rain feeds into the Feshie River itself, in an area with strewn with quite large boulders of all colours, pale blues, pale pinks and yellows and whites, and the river a constant lovely white noise through the night. And it's raining. It's been raining all day, and it's going to be raining all day. The forecast has changed from light drizzle and occasional sunshine to heavy rain as it has it. Although it's not heavy, it's certainly drizzly. But what's striking me now as I've emerged from the tent is just the quietness. I'm down by the Four Lochans now. I just want to try and get some sounds. So under a pine tree. After a while it was cold and it was wet, so I returned to the tent around about 4, clambered in. It was all fine, the water level was down at where it should have been and where it had been when I'd left the tent, and then I crawled into my sleeping bag and munched on an oat cake and read the book again. And there was always a little niggle. Firstly, I was aware that there was a dry riverbed very near where I was camped, so I did wonder if there might ever be a flood of water coming from that direction. And I did also wonder if the level of the water might rise, so I kept poking my head out of the tent to check the level of the water, and it always seemed to be exactly where it had been. And then I fell asleep. This is a classic, isn't it? I fell asleep for about an hour, then woke up and unzipped the tent, had to look outside, and the water was literally 3 feet from the skirt of the tent. The river had risen so suddenly and so much. So I zipped up the tent, took out the tent poles, And then I dragged the tent from where it was to a dry place and started to take stock about what on earth I was going to do. That water's lulling white water roar had become something that felt a lot more threatening than just something that lulls you off to sleep. No disrespect to the water, it was just doing what water does. It's a law of physics. It was stupid of me to have camped in a place like that. So what I did was I packed everything onto the bike again and started looking for an alternative campsite. Already this must have been about 6 p.m. I reckon. But a lot of the surfaces I came across were on very spongy sphagnum moss, and so this tent would have just soaked it all up and become very wet. So I just cycled on and eventually reached Rothiemurchus estate, which is where I am now. And I suppose I have wanted to camp in Rothiemurchus, so it's quite nice to actually be here. Found a spot in a field where anglers then descend to the river, because there's one of these angling notices here. And everything is pretty wet. It took me about half an hour to dry everything that I needed to sleep in. But I got a good night's sleep.